Hello and welcome back to the Tiberium Armory series. This is Game Master Karakin, and today we will be talking about the flame weapons in the Command & Conquer Tiberium universe. This video will principally be about the Incinerator tank, the Devil's Tongue tank, and its later models throughout the Second and Third Wars. But it'll also be a video describing how flamethrowers have been used in history and how they would be used in-game. Before I get into that though, I'd like to take a second to say that I now have a Facebook page. I don't know if anyone's going to jump over there, but I made a declaration on there, on one of my first posts, that as a New Year's resolution, I want to try to stick to a once every 2 weeks schedule for this YouTube channel throughout this next year. So I'll be posting this video either today, Saturday the 7th of January, or next Friday. And that will be how I will be producing videos from this point forward. I have grown quite a bit in this last year, and I want to grow quite a bit more and get it to the point where I can start earning money on this, because it is one of my dreams to have a channel where I can earn money making YouTube videos on this and other topics. Eventually moving into maybe some D&D style stuff. I will post the link to the Facebook in the description. Another thing to note is that I may be changing professions in a short period, and that might affect how many hours in the week that I have to work on projects like this. I might have to switch to working over the weekend. So I will try my best to stick to the schedule, and we shall see if I can make it to, I want to say 40 videos in a year. I'm going to try see if I can get to that point and work my way up to being as prolific as somebody like Arch Warhammer is. Finally, I might have secured a editor which would make my videos look way better, and I still have to figure out exactly how I'm going to pay the person and make sure everything's going smoothly with that, with my limited income at the moment. But I will tell you if that gets finalized, and you will probably see it in a video coming soon if that turns out well. Anyway, let's get started. Flame weapons and their applications go as far back in history as the ancient Greeks, who used their Greek fire to devastate armies of many different nationalities, and were more recently used in both world wars. Definitionally, a flamethrower is a ranged incendiary device designed to project a controllable jet of fire. Most military flamethrowers use liquid fuel, typically either gasoline or diesel, but commercial flamethrowers are generally blowtorches using gaseous fuels such as propane. In general, gases are safer for peacetime applications because their flames have a less mass flow rate and dissipate faster, although the liquid fuels are generally way more devastating. Modern flamethrowers were first used in trench warfare conditions of World War I and generally saw greater use in World War II. Generally, they were composed of two different elements, the backpack and the gun. The backpack usually consists of 2 or 3 cylinders containing a propellant gas and a flammable liquid, usually some form of petrochemical. Flamethrowers in this era were mostly used against battlefield fortifications, bunkers, or other protected emplacements. Typically, this would be a launch of burning fuel, which would get into difficult to reach places inside of buildings and flush infantry out of their hiding places. Contemporary flamethrowers could incinerate a target at 50 to 100 meters, 160 to 330 feet from the operator, which is pretty incredible. The biggest problem with the flamethrower, though, was the pressurized tank of non-flammable gas, which could rupture if hit by enemy fire. Usually, this did not mean that the person exploded in a giant ball of fire, but it could happen. The best way to minimize problems with this is to put them on armored vehicles. Generally, the US and the UK were the most prolific users of vehicle-mounted flame weapons. In the 21st century, however, flame weapons are restricted in use in war from the protocol of incendiary weapons. In the Tiberium universe, however, this protocol did not stop Nod from developing new ways to use these weapons, and new materials from which to make an even deadlier, longer range version. The most basic version of the flame weapons used by Nod during the First War and before was the Flame Soldier. This flamethrower soldier carried around a standard infantry weapon, used pressurized gas to expel flames at a fairly short range, and would be explosively detonated if destroyed with certain weapons, such as another flamethrower. These troops wore flame retardant armor that would be used to help them in densely packed buildings or other settings where their own flames would be less likely to damage them. A less common sight on the battlefield would be the Tiberium Dawn flame tank, which was, believe it or not, based on the very early versions of the Tiberium harvesters. These flame tanks, as well as all subsequent flame tanks, use twin turbine gas expulsion jets to produce superheated dual columns of forced flame. The description reads that it is useful in flushing out infantry in the field and clearing heavily forested areas for the oncoming forces to follow. Interestingly, the wiki is directly opposed by sources that I will show you on screen, and claims that the flamethrowers used a napalm or liquid jet system. This is not, however, true, because the range on these vehicles was very short, making it much more likely that they were used with standard torch methods, gas instead of liquid. Either way, this very fast and versatile weapon was dangerous to infantry and buildings. Unfortunately, though, it was also very likely to explode when hit with anti-tank weapons, causing massive explosions that would cover the entire area in burning hot flames. The tank was useful in the First War in the densely populated cities of the 20th century world, but shown to be a liability by the end of the war. In the Tiberium War, it was replaced by an advanced subterranean model, the Devil's Tongue subterranean flame tank. Before moving on to this one, I want to put a special emphasis on the Black Hand version of the Devil's Tongue flame tank. And this one closely resembles the one used in the Tiberium Wars game. It's more compact and has a smaller profile, making it a lot better protected than the standard version. This is the version of the tank that I grew up with, having started as one of my very first Tiberium Universe games being Renegade. Anyway, back to the Devil's Tongue. The subterranean Devil's Tongue flame tank is a very interesting vehicle, described in the manual thus: terror is a formidable weapon, and the sheer sight of this nightmarish unit is enough to cause GDI troops to tremble. Capable of burrowing through all but the hardest of substances, the Devil's Tongue can unleash deadly streams of flame on unsuspecting targets with impunity. The flame is especially effective against infantry and structures, although prolonged exposure to its blast can even melt steel. Again, the wiki presents us with a pressurized napalm weapon, and in this instance it's possible that they did actually use pressurized napalm in this vehicle. However, considering that they went back to a gas version in the third game, I'm more likely to say that it was pressurized gas in this one too. This one had a notable improvement over the last version, as the pressurized tanks were completely enclosed within the vehicle and then more resilient to anti-tank fire. However, as a trade-off, the compact design forced Nod technicians to discard all but the lightest armor plating, rendering the tank vulnerable to all forms of weaponry. This unit was especially versatile as it could burrow itself into the ground and up again, making for very powerful ambushes that could take entire infantry squads, or if unburrowing into a column of tanks, a incredibly good disruptive rear lines attack. After the death of Cain, again, in the Second War, the flame tank was changed yet again through contact with Brother Marcion. This new tank featured heavier armor, a turret that allows for either targeting, and had the ability to stay out in the action for longer periods without refueling. The vehicle was not very useful against those with enclosed armor, such as tanks, but it was deadly when going up against trenched infantry or light vehicles. A upgrade that came with this and other flame units in that particular game was the Tiberium base fuel, the purifying flame upgrade that made them even more dangerous to all combatants. Now the flames were not only superheated, they were also radiation filled. What a combo. Another interesting thing about this version of the flame tank is that you can see through these images that there was a iterative cycle of designs that were seemingly not present with the either earlier vehicles. Either that or all records were destroyed over the course of the last several wars. The final version was a silent and fast tank that could glide over a battlefield without making a sound until it turns a corner, you see it, and the last thing you hear is a whoosh, as no matter what kind of armor you have, you are melted near instantly. Even destroying the tank is not the end of the damage, as very likely it'll explode violently upon death and take everyone nearby with it. Vehicles that were hit with the stealth upgrade or power glide across the battlefield completely invisible and douse people in rivers of fire and instantly go back to being invisible. Man, that is just badass. I like to take a moment and imagine what the battlefield would look like. All of the weapons that the Brotherhood uses, many of them the infantry weapons being regular sorts of rifles and such, and many of their tanks using conventional rounds. But if you're attacking a base with some of the best tech, just imagine as GDI walking your way towards their base, and silently a tank next to you explodes, being hit with a laser from miles away that you can't even see. You turn a corner and there's a flame tank, and it douses you and all your friends with flame. You come around another corner and a missile hits on the ground, and suddenly everywhere is filled with Tiberium vapor. You feel yourself turning into a viceroy from the inside out. Being a foot soldier for the GDI must be terrifying. I think almost as terrifying as being a foot soldier in 40k, if not just on parity. This has been Game Master Karakin, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.